The stairs are the same 14 they've always been. 2 grocery bags cutting white lines into your fingers, a duffel dragging at one shoulder, and against your neck, the loose, warm weight of a sleeping child, small breath fogging once against your collarbone. Your arms ache, not sharply, a duller thing, an ache that's gone on so long it no longer announces itself as ache. It has folded itself into the meaning of your arms. You might not even mention it. You might just say, fine, tired, normal. When did it start feeling normal? Somewhere under the strap mark rising pink across your shoulder, a question moves through you, quiet enough to mistake for the ache itself. Not what you're carrying, you know the list. Milk, bread, a child who trusts your shoulder more than his own bed. The question is about the one doing the carrying. A holder and a held. It seems obvious. Of course, there's a you under all this weight. But sit with the ache one more moment before you answer that. Don't set anything down yet. Just feel where, exactly, the you begins, and where the load ends. The stairs are the same 14 they've always been, and your foot knows each one before it lands. 2 grocery bags cut white lines into the fingers of one hand. A duffel, strapped diagonal, drags at the opposite shoulder, and against your neck, on that same side, the loose, warm weight of a sleeping child, head lolling with each step, small breath fogging once against your collarbone. Your arms ache. Not sharply, not in any way that would make you stop and set something down on the landing to shake the feeling out. It's a duller thing than that. The kind of ache that's been going on long enough it no longer announces itself as ache. It has folded itself into the meaning of your arms. If someone asked you right now what your arms feel like, you might not even mention it. You might say, fine, tired, normal. When did it start feeling normal? You reach the landing, shift the duffel. The child stirs, resettles, doesn't wake. And somewhere under the strap mark already rising pink across your shoulder, a question moves through you so quietly you almost mistake it for the ache itself. What is it exactly that you're carrying? Not the list. You already know the list. Milk, bread, a change of clothes for the weekend, a child who trusts your shoulder more than his own bed. That part isn't the question. The question is about the one doing the carrying. Because somewhere in this, in the tight grip of your fingers around plastic handles, in the practiced angle of your neck bracing a small skull, in the low burn threading from your shoulder blade down into your forearm, there is an assumption sitting so quietly you've never once turned to look at it, that there is a you, whole and separate, standing apart from all of this weight, holding it. A holder and a held. You on one side, the bags, the bag, the child, the ache on the other. It seems obvious. It seems like the most obvious thing in the world. Of course there is a you under the weight. Who else would be climbing these stairs? But sit with the ache one more moment before you answer that. Don't reach for comfort yet. Don't set anything down. Just feel where, exactly, in all of this, the you begins and where the load ends. Your foot finds the last stair. The ache is still there. So is the question. By morning, it has already spread past your shoulder. You're at a red light that hasn't changed yet, and your jaw is set like it's bracing for something, though nothing is coming. Just the light, just the weight. Notice it now. The back teeth pressed together, the small muscle at the hinge standing out like a knuckle. You didn't decide this. No one told your jaw to hold the intersection shut. It simply is holding, the way it holds most mornings, the the way it's been holding for longer than you'd guess if asked. Your phone sits in your hand at the same light, and your grip on it is tighter than the weight of it requires. A few ounces of glass and metal, and yet your fingers curl around it the way they might curl around a bird that could bolt if you eased up. What is it you think will happen if you hold it loosely? At the sink that night, hands in warm water, a plate going round and round under the cloth, you are having the argument again. The one that already ended hours ago out loud with someone in another room who has long since stopped thinking about it. But you are still in it, still delivering the sentence you didn't say, still hearing the sentence you wish had never been said to you. And your shoulders have risen half an inch without your permission, and the plate is getting cleaner than it needs to be. None of this announces itself as carrying. It doesn't feel like a duffel strap or a strap mark rising pink. It feels like simply how you are. A little tense, a little tired, a little braced. A person who grips the wheel a bit hard and clenches a bit much and replays things a bit longer than makes sense. Ordinary, unremarkable, yours. But notice how constant it is. Not the traffic, not the phone, not the argument. Those come and go. The gripping doesn't. It moves from the jaw to the hand, to the shoulders, to the stomach, the way weather moves across a week. Always somewhere, never entirely absent. A low hum running underneath the hours so steadily you'd have to go looking for a moment without it. When did you last find one? Not a vacation, not a held breath at the top of a hill, not the half second before sleep. A moment where nothing, anywhere in you, was clenched. You are still here, still breathing. Plate rinsed now and set in the rack, water running clear over your knuckles. The argument is not real. The light has changed. The phone is only a phone. And still, the grip. What is it doing there? Humming along beneath the dishes, the traffic, the small, hard edge of your own back teeth, if nothing in the room is asking to be held. There is a rope somewhere behind the sternum that you have been holding since before you can remember picking it up. You have never seen it. You would not know how to describe its weight, its fiber, the way it feels against the palm. And yet the hand is closed around it, has been closed around it for so long that the closing no longer registers as an act. It registers as a shape. It registers as simply how a hand is. Ask yourself, the way you asked at the sink, the way you asked on the stair, what is it exactly that you're holding here? Not the plate, not the phone, not the child's weight or the duffel's strap. Something further back. The one who was gripping all of those. Go looking for it now, the way your tongue goes looking for a tooth that used to be there. Who is it that clenched the jaw at the light? Who is it that replayed the argument at the sink, that curled the fingers around the phone as if it might run? You have been assuming this whole time that there was someone doing the holding, a fixed hand, a fixed you, standing just behind the grip, operating it the way a hand operates a rope. But feel into the hand itself for a moment. Not what it holds. The hand. You've known people whose fingers, after enough years bent around a hammer's handle, a violin's neck, a steering wheel gripped through some crisis long past, no longer straighten all the way. The hand forgets it was ever open. It forgets there was a time before the curling, a time when the fingers simply lay flat and easy against a table, asking nothing, holding nothing. Ask that hand to open and it resists you, not out of will, not out of decision, but out of habit worn so deep it has become mistaken for bone. This is the shape you have been living in. The story of who you are, steady, worried, capable, tired, the one who carries, the one who copes, has been gripped in exactly this way. White-knuckled around a rope so old you no longer feel your fingers wrapped around it. You feel only the ache that comes from wrapping. You call the ache myself. And here is the question, quieter than before, almost too quiet to hear over the hum of your own held breath. Is there a hand at all beneath the grip? Or is the grip curled tight enough for long enough, simply what a hand comes to feel like from the inside? Don't answer yet. Just notice, the way you noticed the strap mark rising on your shoulder that you have never once checked. You have assumed a holder standing behind the holding, the way you assumed a self standing behind the fear, the fatigue, the endless small clenchings of a Tuesday. But assumption is not the same as finding. A hand cramped shut for 30 years does not remember choosing to close. It only remembers being closed. It calls this closedness its nature. You are being asked, gently in the dark, to feel your own fingers. The ones around the rope you cannot see, the ones behind the eyes, behind the name you answer to. And ask, not with panic, only with the mild curiosity of someone checking a lock they have never actually tried. Is this shape mine? Or is it only what long holding feels like, worn so close to the bone that it started to answer to my name? Picture the end of a long trip, not the trip itself, the return. The bag set down on a table, unbuckled, opened for the first time in weeks, its ribs finally spread flat. You lift each thing out one at a time, the folded shirts, softer now from being worn against a body that moved through unfamiliar rooms. The small bottle, half empty, a ticket stub gone soft at the corners. The book you meant to finish and didn't. You line them up on the table the way a child lines up stones. And you notice, somewhere in the lining up, that everything is still here. Nothing spilled out along the way. Nothing was quietly lost between one station and the next. The bag gave back exactly what it took in, and yet the shoulders, unstrapped now, rise an inch they didn't know they'd been holding down. The skin along the collarbone, where the strap crossed and crossed and crossed again, shows a pink line already beginning to fade, already forgetting the shape it was pressed into. So, what is it exactly that you're carrying? Not the shirts, not the ticket, not the half-finished book, not the small bottle catching the light. Those are only things, resting where they've always rested, indifferent to whether a shoulder aches on their behalf. What ached was never the weight of the objects. What ached was the strap. What ached was the bracing, the shoulders set forward hour after hour to keep the bag from swinging, long after the swinging stopped mattering. Say it slower if it helps. The content and the grip were never the same thing. The memory is not the ache. The years are not the ache. The love, the particular tilt of a particular face you have carried so far, so long, that the carrying itself began to feel indistinguishable from the loving, is not the ache either. The ache was only ever the arms deciding, over and over, without being asked, to brace as if the thing might otherwise be dropped, might otherwise be lost, might otherwise cease to be real the moment the hands stopped working. But look at the table. Nothing fell. You can set the bag all the way empty and every item is still there, still whole, still exactly itself, arranged now in better light than it ever had zipped shut in the dark. The years you thought you were holding on to by force turn out to have been resting quietly the whole time, needing no muscle at all. only witnessed, only laid out, only finally seen without a shoulder wedged beneath them. What if the strap mark fading on your skin right now is not the mark of something ending, but the mark of something finally allowed to simply be there, unguarded? You don't have to answer that tonight. You don't have to unpack anything you're not ready to look at. It's enough, for now, to notice that a bag can be fully emptied and nothing goes missing. That the table can hold everything the shoulder once swore only it could hold. The years are still yours. The face is still yours. Nothing you love has ever required your arms to ache in order to remain true. Only the bracing was ever optional. And the strap mark, even now, is already beginning to fade. There is a house you have never lived in, but you know its floor plan the way you know your own tongue against your teeth. Somewhere in it, a wall runs load-bearing through the center, or so everyone has always said. The beam above it rests there. The upstairs floor trusts it. Generations of hands have knocked on that wall before touching it, the way you'd knock before waking someone, out of respect for what it's holding up. Then one day, someone opens the plans, old ones from before the renovations, before the additions, before anyone alive now was born. And there, in faded blue ink, the real beam is traced somewhere else entirely, sunk into the header above the hallway, doing the actual work, quietly, without ceremony, all this time. The wall was never holding the house. The house had simply been built around the wall as if it were. You can feel where this is going before it arrives. And still, it's worth walking there slowly. Think of the name you answer to when someone calls across a room and how quickly your whole body turns toward it. Shoulders first, then the rest of you, as if the sound itself has weight and you are only its shadow catching up. Think of the rules worn so long they've stopped feeling worn. The one who fixes things, the one who apologizes first, the one who is fine, always fine, especially when asked twice. Think of the old wound you still brace around without remembering you're bracing. A door slammed decades ago that you still walk past sideways, in a house that may not even have that door anymore. Somewhere along the way, each of these got load-bearing status, not because they held anything up, but because they'd been there so long, so early, so quietly, that removing them seemed unthinkable. The same unthinkable a house feels toward a wall it was built to lean on, whether or not the wall was ever asked. But a house doesn't know what it's built around. It only knows what it's used to. And bodies are the same. Standing rooms holding themselves a certain way for so many years that the posture starts to feel like bone. What would happen, do you think, if you set 2 fingers against that wall? The name, the role, the old bracing around the old wound, and simply felt for the tremor of real weight in it, the way you'd feel a beam humming faintly under true load? Or would your hand find only paint? Old paint, many coats of it, cool and still, holding nothing but the shape of having always been touched that way. No one is asking you to tear anything down tonight. Wrecking a wall you're not sure is load-bearing is its own kind of violence, done in a hurry, out of doubt instead of care. But it is worth knowing, quietly, privately, without needing to prove it to anyone in the room, that somewhere in the plans of you, older than the additions, older than the name, there may already be a beam doing the real work, unseen, undramatic, never once asking to be thanked. And the wall, this wall you've been calling yourself, may only be standing there out of habit, holding nothing, being held. Close your hand for a moment, not hard, just enough to remember what closing feels like. Feel the knuckles rise, the tendons pull taut along the back of the wrist, the small tremor of effort that starts almost immediately, and that you almost immediately stop noticing. Now ask, differently than before, what if there was never anyone there closing it? Not as an accusation, not as a trick to catch you failing at something, only as a question laid quietly on the table, the way you might lay down a stone. Because here is the strange thing about a hand clenched long enough. After a while, it forgets it is holding a shape and believes instead that it is the shape. The ache stops announcing itself as ache and starts announcing itself as hand. And underneath all that gripping, all that announcing, something has been sitting the entire time, untroubled, unclenched, simply there, the way a stone rests in an open palm before any fingers arrive to close around it. You have been told, in 100 quiet ways across this telling, that the grip is not the same as the thing gripped. Now go a little further. What if the grip is not even holding on to something that needs holding? What if the fingers curled around the stone not because the stone was in danger of falling, but only because curling was the last thing the hand remembered how to do, and it kept doing it, the way a jaw keeps clenching long after the light has turned green. Picture it plainly. A stone, gray, warm from skin heat, sitting in an open palm on a table in a quiet room. No one placed it there for safekeeping. No one is guarding it. It has simply been resting the whole time, the way a name rests under a doorbell, the way a photograph rests in a drawer whether or not anyone opens the drawer to look. Then a hand closes over it, slowly, out of old habit, the way a fist closes around a rope, the way fingers wrap a phone at a red light. And because the hand has held this shape for so long, it comes to believe that holding is its purpose, that if it opened, the stone would roll off the table, off the world, gone. But watch what happens when, very slowly, with no urgency, no announcement, the fingers loosen. The stone does not fall. It does not vanish, does not lighten, does not change its weight by a single grain. It sits exactly where it always sat, faithful as floor, patient as old paint on an inner wall. Only the fingers are different now. Only the ache that lived in the knuckles is gone, the way a strap mark fades once the shoulder stops bracing beneath it. So which was ever true? That something was being held, or only that something was being cramped around? You are still here, feeling the weight of your own hand as you read this, still breathing, still entirely present in whatever room holds you now. Nothing in this asks you to disappear. It asks something smaller and stranger. What if the disappearing was never the danger, and the only thing ever at risk of leaving was the tightness itself? The story that a hand must clench to keep a stone from falling, when the stone was never falling, when the palm was already open long before the fingers thought to close. What if there was never anyone holding at all, only the appearance of holding, curled so long around stillness that it mistook itself for a grip, or only something cramped around something that was never in danger? There is a fear underneath all of this, and it has been waiting patiently while you listened, and it deserves to be named plainly, without softening. If the hand opens, does the stone stay? If the self that grips is only a cramp, a habit, a curl grown mistaken for a fist, then what happens to the people held inside it? What happens to the ones you love if the one who loves them turns out to be smoke around a shape? You know this fear. You have carried a voice this way, a parent's voice maybe, worn thin from playing it so often in the dark. The exact pitch of it, the exact way it said your name, held so tightly in memory that the holding itself has become its own kind of grief, separate from the loss, sitting on top of it like a second weight. You have gripped a memory the way a hand grips a phone that might run off, terrified that if you stop checking, stop replaying, stop bracing around the sound of it, that the sound itself will go, that the voice needs your clenched attention the way a small flame needs a cupped hand in wind. So you hold on. Of course you hold on. Who wouldn't? But feel for a moment what the holding costs. Not the memory. The memory costs nothing, asks nothing, sits as quietly as a stone in an open palm. It is the gripping around it that exhausts you. The nightly rehearsal, the fear-tightened listening, the bracing against a silence that hasn't even happened yet. The ache isn't in the voice. It never was. The ache is in the hand. And here is the part almost too tender to say out loud. When the grip finally loosens, not because you forced it, but because it simply could not stay closed forever, the voice does not leave with it. It is still there, unchanged, resting in the exact place it always was, the way the stone rested in the palm long before any hand thought to close around it. You find this out almost by accident, some ordinary afternoon, not trying to remember, not gripping at all. And there it is anyway, the voice, the cadence, the way it said your name, arriving on its own, lighter than you've ever heard it, because for once nothing was straining to hold it in place. Nothing was ever lost by the opening of a hand that was never truly holding the thing to begin with. Say that once more, slowly, because it is the hardest sentence in all of this. Nothing is lost. Not the voice, not the years, not the love, however far back it goes. Only the ache leaves, the specific, familiar, exhausting ache of believing that your gripping was the only thing keeping any of it here. You are still here, still breathing, still sitting wherever you are sitting, still able to hear that voice whenever it comes, without needing to clench toward it first. So which was it keeping the ones you love close all this time? The desperate holding, or something that was never in danger of leaving, held now the way it always was, in the open, unguarded palm underneath the fist? Leave the voice for a moment. Leave the stone, the palm, the fist that forgot it was closed. Come back here, into the room where you actually are. There is a chair or a bed or a seat with a seatbelt across it, and there is your body in it. And there is this moment, which has not happened before and will not happen again. So ask it now, not about a parent's voice, not about a bag unpacked after a long trip. Ask it about this. What are you carrying right now in this room? Not what you carried today, not the old bracing you can name if you reach for it. Just this, just now. Start with the shoulders, not to lower them, only to find them. Where are they exactly? Higher than they were an hour ago? Drawn slightly toward the ears, the way they get when the whole body is listening for something that hasn't happened yet? You don't have to fix that. Find the jaw next. There's a place just beneath the ears where it lives, and it has likely been holding a small, private tension for longer than you'd guess. Not clenched exactly, just braced. The way a door is braced when it isn't locked but isn't quite trusted either. You don't have to unclench it. Notice the breath, not by changing it, just by finding where it actually is right now, this instant, in the body. Is it high, sitting in the chest like something perched and ready to leave? Is it being held just slightly, one beat longer than it needs to be, the way you hold a glass a half second after it's already safely on the table? You don't have to release it. This isn't a posture to correct. There is no version of sitting up straighter that finishes this. You are not being asked to arrange yourself into stillness. You are only being asked to notice what is already here, the way you'd notice, without alarm, that your hand has been resting on something warm for a while. Because this exact configuration of shoulder and jaw and breath, in this exact room on this exact night, this is the carrying, not a metaphor for it, not an example of it. This, right here, in the body reading these words or hearing this voice, something is being held that doesn't need to be held. Not later, not in some other more important moment you're waiting to arrive. Now. You don't have to know what it is. You don't have to name it, trace it back to a person or a year or a wound. It doesn't require your explanation to be real, and it doesn't require your correction to be seen. Just this room. Just this weight, exactly where it sits. Just this single, ordinary question asked one more time, quieter than before. What is it exactly that's being carried, here, now, in you? No one decides this. That's the part that will surprise you, if surprise is even the word for something so quiet it barely disturbs the air. You do not brace and then by will unbrace. You do not command the jaw to loosen or the shoulder to drop or the fingers to spread wide and let the phone rest instead of being held like it might bolt. It simply happens, the way a held breath sometimes lets itself out before you've decided to breathe again. You'll be sitting there, in the chair, in the seat, wherever this has found you, and some small thing will shift low in the body, beneath naming, and you'll notice only after that a hand has opened. Not thrown open, not flung. Opened the way a door left off its latch swings a little wider in the night for no reason anyone saw. And here is the strange arithmetic of it. Nothing has left the room. The bag is still on the floor. The child is still asleep against whatever shoulder is left to hold her. The voice you carried so carefully is still exactly where it was, unchanged, unhurt, not one syllable of it thinner for the loosening. Nothing has vanished. This is worth saying plainly, once, without disguise. Dissolving is not vanishing. Vanishing would mean the stone falls, the voice goes silent. The years in the bag turn out to have been hollow all along. That isn't what happens. What happens is smaller and stranger than a loss. Only the strain leaves the hands. The holding was never load-bearing. It was only tired. So what is it then? You can feel the question arriving again, can't you? Slower this time, almost lazy, almost already known. What is it exactly that's being carried here, now, in you? And this time, something in you doesn't wait for the rest of the sentence. This time, some part of you has already started answering before the words finish landing. Not with a thought, not with a sentence you could repeat to someone else, but with a kind of settling, the way water finds level without being told which way is down. You feel it in the hand that is already opened without asking permission. You feel it in the breath that let itself all the way out 3 sentences ago and never asked to be brought back in. Nothing left, only the ache quietly leaving through the same door it always used, so ordinary you'll almost miss it happening. You are still here, still breathing, still holding this moment the way a palm holds air, which is to say not holding it at all, only touching it, only letting it pass through on its way to wherever moments go. The hands are open now. No one opened them. The staircase again. 14 of them, the same 14. And you know their heights by now, the way your feet know them. Not as counting, just as rhythm. The bags are still here. The duffel is still here, strap worn pale in a line only you would notice. The child is still here, or the memory of that weight is, settled somewhere in the shoulder that used to brace for it. And your arms hang at your sides, not because you set anything down. Nothing was set down. Look, the bags are still full. The duffel still needs to be dragged up over the threshold. The door still needs a hip to nudge it open one-handed. All of it present. All of it exactly as heavy as it ever was. Only the ache is gone. What is it exactly that you're carrying? The question one last time. And this time it doesn't ask about the bags at all. It never really did. Because here is what was never told to you plainly. Though it was circling the whole time, in the rope, in the wall, in the stone resting in the open palm. It was never a you standing apart from the carrying, gripping it, bracing under it, deciding each morning to pick it back up. There was only the carrying, tightening for a while into the shape of a name, wearing your face like a strap mark that would eventually fade. You were never the one holding, only the holding, wearing your name for a while. Say that once, quietly, the way you'd say it to someone falling asleep, and notice it doesn't frighten you. Notice you're still here, still standing at the bottom of the same stairs, still breathing, still able to feel the exact place where a bag handle presses into your palm. Nothing left. The weight is simply weight now instead of a verdict, so climb if you're climbing, or don't. Either way, tonight, the next time you feel your hand close around something, a cup, a jaw, a memory, a steering wheel, a name, stop for one breath and simply feel it close. Not to stop it, not to fix it, just to feel the fingers doing what fingers do, and to wonder gently who exactly is doing the closing. Let that noticing be enough. It always was. Here is the whole of it, distilled down to what your hand already knows. You are not the grip. You are not even the one gripping. You are the quiet the grip happens in, and nothing you have ever carried, no ache, no memory, no sleeping weight against your shoulder was ever at risk, because it was never you holding it up in the first place. If something in you just went still reading that, if some old strap mark on your chest eased half a degree, say so in your own words in the comments before you go. One sentence, first person, in your own voice. What you found still there once your hands finally opened. Not for me, for the next person scrolling past in the dark, arms full, wondering if it's safe to stop gripping. And when you're ready, there's another voice waiting for you on the screen now. Another doorway, another staircase, another place to keep listening.